Mr. McCabe, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I know the Honourable Member for Strangford, whom I warmly congratulate on gaining this debate, has a debate coming up on the 27th of November, I think, on the subject of armed violence against the farming communities in Nigeria, most of whom are Christian. But I wanted to comment on the situation in Nigeria as an example of how we might look at the issue of religious freedom. Although this does not fall under my remit as the Prime Minister's trade envoy to Nigeria, I do know the country, and I feel that I can comment in that context. The federal and state governments in Nigeria are prevented from adopting a state religion. They're also prevented from showing any discrimination on religious grounds. This is a country where the split between Christians and Muslims is almost exactly 50-50. I think there is a difference of about 1% between the two. Now, although some states, and there are about 12 states, follow Sharia law, they do so for Muslim-to-Muslim relations. And it would be wrong to characterize an area in Nigeria as either Christian or as Muslim. For example, significant numbers of Christians live in the north, an area which is traditionally thought of as a Muslim area. And I'd just like to say that there is no evidence at all of Sharia courts being used for Christian activities unless they particularly want to raise a concern about a Muslim activity, but it is simply for Muslim-to-Muslim activities. Now, both Muslim and Christian groups have complained that the government handling of disputes, particularly in that central band across the middle of Nigeria, where long-standing disputes between Christian farmers and Muslim herders have raised rival claims. These rival claims include that the security forces did not intervene when farming villages were attacked by herdsmen. But it's interesting that when farming villages were attacked by herdsmen, there was an uproar in Abuja. The president was summoned to Parliament. Service chiefs were summoned to Parliament. Security advisors were also summoned to Parliament, and they were subjected to quite a lot of intense aggravation, as it were, from parliamentarians over this act. But equally on the other side, the media regularly reports claims by Christians that northern leaders are backed by the government, are trying to Islamize the whole of the country. And of course, the presence of Boko Haram is crucial to this. But Boko Haram is a terrorist organization. It is not an organization that the government can control. And it tries to control it with the help, indeed, of British service personnel who are there as advisors to it by trying to attack Boko Haram. But Boko Haram will not be defeated by military means alone. Boko Haram will be defeated by the country sharing in the wealth creation that is going on in Nigeria, and making sure that they've shared at a very low level, as it were, of individuals, so that they are offering something that Boko Haram cannot offer. And I think that there are already signs of success in that. Now, there have also been reports that Christian groups in northern states are not given building permits, and I think this was raised earlier. So what we have here is a situation where Christian communities decide that they are simply going to build the churches that they want to, and they're going to wait until the government comes and bulldozes them down, which it does from time to time. And this has happened in a number of states, for example. But there is also an example that I came across of a mosque being in a similar situation. A mosque that was threatened with demolition because it did not have the right planning permit. So this is something that goes across religions and that we rarely hear about. But unfortunately the demolition of the mosque appeared to be stopped before it actually occurred, and nobody quite knows the reason why. It's worth noting, however, that Muslims too complain of a lack of freedom of religion more generally. And there is the case of a Muslim girl who was denied the chance to be called to the Nigerian bar simply because she wore a hijab. Now, Christians also complain that it is difficult for them to be admitted into schools, and especially to study medicine and engineering. And it is also difficult for them in many states to receive courses in Christianity. But there is signs of optimism. There is some very good work being done by religious leaders on both sides of the argument, including efforts to bring peace to these areas. And this was started as a result of the attacks between farmers and herdsmen, particularly after 300 farmers were killed by raiding herdsmen who were coming in. The violence includes religious differences. But we shouldn't pretend that all of the violence in Nigeria can be brought down simply to religious differences. There are economic and social factors that are involved as well.
Would the Honourable Member...
Of course.
I absolutely acknowledge that. For example, many of these herdsmen who used to be able to roam fairly freely and have grazing grounds now find that those grazing grounds are more restricted. But having said that, nor can we deny the fact that actually there is an element of ethnicity or religious discrimination which is happening when these attacks occur, at least in large part, if not in all.
I thank the Honourable Lady for that comment, and I wasn't suggesting that religious differences did not play any part in these attacks, but they do not play the sole part in these attacks. And there are a number of other organisations that we can legitimately blame for this. The media is one, which misreports situations widely across Nigeria, and so too, we can also blame the rapid growth in population. Nigeria is a country that's of about 190 million people at the moment. But the World Bank predict that by 2050, so not very far ahead, it will be a country of 400 million people. That makes it the third most populous country in the world after India and China. And in that situation, it's not surprising that there are tensions that arise. And we know that those tensions do have a religious significance. 12 worshippers died on April the 15th in 2017, and many more were injured in Asso village in Kaduna State. And that's where herdsmen opened fire on an Easter vigil service. And the media reports of that said that the attackers boasted about disrupting that Easter celebration. It is not known whether that is true or not. That is the media reporting of that situation. So there are efforts to bring interfaith dialogue, to ensure that feelings on all sides are listened to and that we do reach reconciliation. And I'd just like to finish by commenting on one of the points that I made on my honourable friend by intervention, and that is the importance of the European Court of Human Rights, and indeed of its, if I can use the term, parent body, but it's the body that does look after it, of the Council of Europe. This does protect the right to hold religious beliefs. I think it's Article 9. And a wide range of faiths have brought cases to protect their freedom to practice religion. And I accept the point that my honourable friend, who's no longer in his place, made about needing to tighten that up, but it depends on countries being willing to accept the judgments of the court. And in the case of Russia, they have been suspended they have rather suspended themselves from the Council of Europe, so they can no longer appoint judges, although the population of Russia still has access to the European Court of Human Rights. And there are a vast number of cases that the European Court of Human Rights is hearing from Russian individuals who are bringing cases against the Russian state. And I think that's important for the reason that I raised earlier. The European Court of Human Rights was born out of the conflict of World War II, and that had a great deal to do with religion. It had a great deal to do with the Jewish faith and the imprisonment of the Jewish faith in concentration camps. But the Council has gone beyond that, and we have produced a tremendous number of reports about the need to ensure respect for the religious backgrounds of refugee families that are coming to Europe, and there must be mutual respect from them as well, of course. But I think that I would really like to ensure that we do not forget that the Council does play a vital role. It may be ignored by many ministers here in the UK. We may never send a UK journalist to monitor the actions of the Council of Europe. We may be the only country that doesn't do that, but it still does that, and the treaties are signed by us and by others on a consensual basis, and that's an important point to bear in mind. So I congratulate again the Honourable Member for Strangford for bringing this debate, and I hope that the contribution that I've made has been helpful in trying to elucidate some of the details.